now to young people who've done the things we've asked them to do, they've gone to college, and that once they've finished college, they have no jobs?
You know, I was on the Financial Services Committee for 8 years. Now I'm on the Appropriations Committee in Foreign Affairs, and I used to ask Alan Greenspan that question when he'd come before the Financial Services Committee, predicting what would happen. There were several of us there saying, look, this economy is going to go in the tubes, the foreclosure crisis is going to hit, and it's going to bust. And I asked him over and over again, what's going to happen with our young people, given the fact that we tell them to play by the rules, and they, you know, graduate from school, they go to school, vocational training, college, whatever, and there are no jobs. And the chairman of the Federal Reserve never had an answer for that. He said, well, that is a problem. We're going to have to try to fix it. But what we have to do, I think, is make sure that we provide, and we did this in the economic recovery package, the job training funds there to train young people for the jobs of the future. For instance, in Oakland, California, my district, we have a green job corps where we take young people who may be in jail or could have been in jail had we not gotten them. And we have almost a boot camp type of program, while at the same time training them to weatherize homes and to put solar panels on homes. And these young people are phenomenal. They're coming through this green job corps with life skills, with the type of support they need, and they, at the end of the day, there's a job for them in this green industry that is a $1 trillion industry that's being created. And so what we have to do is encourage young people and put up the resources for these job training programs and these educational programs that are designed for the jobs that are going to be created and that will exist in the future.
You know, some people have said, and I think it's important to mention this during Women's History Month, that women, you know, seem to be much more sympathetic when it comes to jobs and the problems of people than many of the men. You know, I don't know in terms of whether this is true or not, but the point is that I must say that with the women here in the Congress, that they talk about these issues and family issues a lot more than I think a lot of the men do. You know, and I don't know in terms of whether, you know, anybody's ever done any research on this or not, but it happens. You know, the other thing is that now we have 90 females in the Congress, so I think that's very helpful to the Congress.
I think it's very helpful to the Congress, to the country, and to the world. And when you look at the United States in the scheme of things, you know, we're in the midst of wars that we should not have fought in far-off lands, costing $10 billion a month just alone in Iraq. And it's been women who've been leading the charge to end this occupation of Iraq and to bring our young men and women home, you know. And I co-founded the Out of Iraq Caucus with Congresswoman Maxine Waters and Congresswoman Lynn Woolsey, and we have been deaf on bringing our troops home and not funding any more combat troops because it doesn't make any sense. And so I think women are achieving their rightful place. We still need parity. I mean, we still need many more women in Congress to achieve that parity. But when you look at the agenda of women, it's an agenda that crosses every policy in our government.
Let me just switch to one thing, and I really want to touch upon this. Do you think that Barack Obama, our new president, will be sort of supportive of women's rights and the movement itself? Do you think he will?
I know he will, and all you have to do is ask Michelle Obama. And when you look at family planning, global gag rule, when you look at some of the efforts that he has already taken on that George Bush had in place that was very detrimental to women, Barack Obama, as president, has now turned those policies around. And so I am confident. I mean, I know that he is a feminist. It's obvious to me. And so I think women are very comfortable in working with him. When you look at his cabinet, when you look at his support for women's rights, and when you look at his record, I think that we have a president who gets it and who will work with women in Congress and women throughout the country to achieve parity. And finally, let me just say, the first bill that the president signed was the Lilly Ledbetter bill, equal pay for equal work for women. That was the very first bill he signed into law. I was at the White House when he signed it, and I was so proud of that statement that he made and signing that bill because it's going to help millions of women.
Yeah. So you feel now that the ceiling, I mean, has been cracked
We're cracking it.
You have more women now running for office, that's for sure.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and we will crack it. But we are cracking it.
Well, I think that too, the contribution that you're making, I think people have to recognize that, as a result of the views and feelings of people in the past, that a lot of good legislators were locked out. Probably a lot of good preachers were locked out in terms of a lot of good sermons were missed because of the fact that, we sort of did not understand in terms of how important it was, the role of the women.
Absolutely, and going back to Shirley Chisholm, she used to tell me, she said, if you're elected or wherever you are, don't go along to get along. Those rules weren't made for you nor by you. So if laws are not just and right, and if they're discriminatory, then you've got to change them. You can't just be happy you're there because you happen to break through it. Your duty to change the whole dynamic of this country and the laws so that women can have parity in terms of their lives with men.
Yeah, and also let me take this opportunity to thank you, too, for your work on the gender parity bill in terms of where, as you know, that bathroom facilities and sporting events, just not fair. And, if you go to a theater, that the bathrooms are it's not fair. And, of course, I told a story many, many years ago when I first introduced this bill with you, and that how I went to a play. And, of course, the second act was just about to start, and my wife still did not return. And then when she came back, I said, we got to go, it's starting. And she says, yeah, there was a line in the ladies' room. Mm-hmm. She said, they didn't have a line in the men's room? And I said, no. So which means that the parity issue, it's something that we have to address.
Well, I want to say you're right, we have to, but on this bill, I'm glad it's a man that's leading on this bill because I think our brothers here in Congress need to get it. And I really applaud you for leading on that, and I'm very happy to be a co-sponsor and having to help get this bill through. But I think it's very important for men to take a stand on gender equity, and so thank you very much as a woman for that.
I appreciate your kind words. I sure hope my wife is listening. I think I made some points here. And the other thing about it, I remember on a trip, and I'm going to close, I was in, I think it was Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And there was this long line of ladies. And I really thought it was a sale or there was something, buying something, only to look and I realized that the line was to the ladies' room. And that's what led to my coming back to Washington and coming up with this gender bill. Mm-hmm. Something has to be done. I think that it's unfair. There's no question about it. Now, one would say, well, years ago when many of these facilities were built, women didn't get around, didn't get out, but they do now.
Yeah, and that's not the point. This is 2009. And I'm telling you, this is such an important bill because that's what you hear every time you go to the restroom. Women are talking about, look at these lines and look at the men. They have no lines. This is like the word on the street, with women everywhere you go. And so this is going to be a bill that I know it's going to get passed.
Right. Thank you so much for being on News and Views. I really enjoyed, working with you, and of course, through the years, and now that you chair the Congressional Black Caucus. And I really appreciate all the things that you've done on behalf of Shirley Chisholm. Even though she's from Brooklyn and you're from California, you've helped us to keep her name alive. And I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your work. And it's really
good to be with you today. Thank you.
You have been watching Political News and Views with Congressman Ed Towns of the 10th Congressional District of New York. If you have any questions or comments regarding this program, please write care of Congressman Ed Towns, U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C. 20515, or call 202-225-5936.